Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is November 19th. Very blustery Sunday here in our parts of the world in Buffalo, New York. Just wanted to say hello and do a quick update on current events on what's going on around right now. As the Grand Solar Minimum will focus on reporting what's happening now, and we'll worry about what we have to worry about right now and focus on preparing for future events as well. Want to give a quick solar update, and the sun earlier today, as I checked earlier, 2688 was accompanying 2687 earlier today, but checking back here a couple hours later is dissipated already. So 2687 does not pose any threats for any kind of solar flare action. It's fairly weak, and as you can see, the solar wind speed sitting at 368.9 kilometers with a density of 8.0. Sunspot number 14, and as I said earlier, pardon me, when 2688 was visible, we had sunspot number 15. So it was a very small grouping, and it fizzled out pretty fast. KP sitting at 1, 24-hour max is at 3, and as we look here at the SDO, we will see the one coronal hole that is turning away from Earth right now, and we will see the coronal winds from that right around the 20th or the 21st of November. Probably minor G1 storm conditions, nothing to be worried about as far as anything disruptive coming in. And I wanted to briefly touch base with the story here on SPACEWEATHER.com. They recently talked about how they were going to launch balloons to measure radiation in the atmosphere, one in California and one in Mexico, and they would post the results once they started coming in. And this is just the beginning of this. But here they take a look at the data reveal, and there's big differences, it says. It goes on to say that these curves show dose rate versus altitude. They diverge rapidly above 15,000 feet, with radiation levels over Central California typically 1.5 times higher than over Mexico. This means air travels over California can expect to receive significantly greater doses of cosmic radiation compared to their counterparts flying south of the border. In both places, radiation levels reached a peak in the stratosphere. At those altitudes, dose rates were 60 times greater than sea level for Mexico and 90 times greater sea level for California. Now, basically, being heading into the solar minimum here, weaker magnetic field, this is to be expected of cosmic rays being more present in the northern parts of the latitudes versus south, but still significantly increased as well. So they're going to release updates from this on a weekly basis, and to dive right in to show us the increase, the decrease, at what rate we're looking at as far as cosmic rays getting in our atmosphere, and to see California up like this. And with all the current rains they're getting now, they're into their rainy season. So it'll be interesting to see exactly what kind of rain records we might break this November. Like I said, we are now into their rainy season. And taking a look also, long-term forecast out to, I think next Monday. It goes all the way out to Wednesday, the 29th. TropicalTidbits.com, great website to monitor air temperature here. We have low pressure, high pressure moving in. The low pressure system they were talking about around Thanksgiving, and I'll pause it when we get to it because I wanted to pause it just real quick. Here we are, the 21st, 22nd. Well, that's Friday, but here is Friday, the day before Thanksgiving, or the day after Thanksgiving. Here's Thanksgiving, and we see the temperatures right at an average for this time of year in the white. The light blue is slightly below, and so on and so forth. And then we go into Black Friday, and we get cold everywhere. And what they're watching is this setup right here, this low pressure system that's going to be over the Great Lakes. So places like Ohio, Michigan, Upper Pennsylvania, Western New York, and so on and so forth into Canada could have a pretty significant chance of a setup for some lake effect snows. And as you see here on Sunday, that cold air exits out pretty fast to the east. And honestly, folks, for the end of the month of November, They're forecasting to be slightly warmer than average, which only means 49, 51, low 50s, high 40 temperatures into November. But then we see a significant increase, especially out into the Atlantic and the southeast part of the United States. But I find it interesting. I want to watch this too down here in the southwest.
You didn't change the scene. I'm sorry.
Oh, people probably wondering.
They're like, what's going on?
What in the heck is he talking about? All right, so what I was showing everyone was this forecast model. That's the beauty of live, right?
Yeah. Thank Matt for because I have mine paused because of the audio, so.
Well, I do apologize, folks, but here we are on the 19th. We'll start over here, which is right now. And I'm sorry, this is the 21st. So this is Tuesday before Thanksgiving. We have the first system that moves in and out rather quickly. And really the temperatures stay about normal through about Thanksgiving, as I was saying. And then the day after Thanksgiving, we start to see things cool down everywhere, especially here in the southwestern region, which they've seen some pretty warm temperatures here recently. But it was this setup that I was talking about, this low pressure system right here over the Great Lakes. That cold air could force lake effect snows during that time, and we're a week out, so this is a long ways away. Here recently, a lot of the forecast models, people are having a hard time keeping up with just 4 days out, let alone a full 7 to 8 days away. So still something to watch, but nothing too out of the ordinary. We're at the end of November, heading in December. This is typical pattern setup for the northeast part of the country. So maybe for Ohio, a little bit early for snows, as being from Ohio myself, I know southwest Ohio, we rarely saw snow in December. So as we check it out, heading out into the 29th, here's the 27th, that cold air moves out. By the 28th, we're starting to see it climb back up a little again. And on the 29th, we see, and like I said, this is probably just means we're going to be in the low mid 50s on the 29th. But that's a distance away that I myself, I don't really rely on anything past 4 days out. So if we're doing that, then let's go back to 4 days out, which would be roughly between Wednesday and Thursday. So this setup right here, I wouldn't be surprised if it changed, honestly. So to be warmer or cooler. Again, I think what I've noticed, the trend here in 2017 is the weather and how there's no consistency. It's very unstable. And I think it's really messing with a lot of meteorologists as far as how to predict and how to forecast. We have seen many story headlines earlier in the week, last week, where they were talking about a potential snowstorm. And like right now today, we were supposed to be in line for over 3 or 4 inches of snow, which it's just been a blustery cold day out, and some, spitting some wet snowflakes. We did notice watching a game earlier today in Cleveland, Ohio, it was snow and rain off and on. Field got kind of sloppy. Nothing major, but this is part of the problem of falling for these long-term outlook forecasts. A week ago we were talking about possibly looking at a major lake effect snow system, and right now I can show you the current radar, and that may look impressive, but it's very, very light, and I'm under an inch easily, even in the areas that's been looking at the lake effects all day today. It's been a very light snow. It's not even technically freezing in Buffalo, or it wasn't earlier, and they're calling it for Glens Falls, which obviously we're not there, but that's just across the state, 36 degrees. So really not cold enough, not quite freezing for anything to stick, except for maybe on some grassy areas and stuff like that. But anyway, I wanted to take a look at another story that kind of raised my eyes here. This volcano alert raised for Iceland's, and Mari, do you have any idea how to pronounce this? Wow. This really impressively named volcano, last eruption was in 1728. It's in Iceland. It's in Iceland.
I don't know.
So a new ice cauldron has formed this week within this volcano's cauldron, prompting Iceland Meteorological Office to raise the aviation color code for the volcano to yellow. The last eruptive episode of this volcano started in August of 1727 and ended in May of 1727. How did that happen? Did they go back in time? I think that might have been a typo. I think it might have started in May of 1727 and ended in August. Either way, that's a long time for a volcano. A pilot flying over the area took pictures of the cauldron Friday, November 17th, and sent them to Iceland's meteorological office. The cauldron is about 1 kilometer in diameter and it reflects recent increase of geothermal activity within the cauldron. It goes on to talk about how the data indicates increased activity of volcano, which has not erupted since 1720. Yes, I said that many times now. So it looks like they're going to continue to monitor this. And here's the correct dates. So it started August 3rd, 1727 and ended on May 1st of 1728. It had a volcano explosivity of index of 4 on a scale of 1 to 7. So it was a very moderate, if not almost major eruption, and was responsible for the deaths of 3 people. Well, this must be a remote area, but still, it's just interesting to see some of these volcanoes that are coming back to life here from 1700s, early 1700s, 1727, is impressive. And like earlier in the month of October when we broke some snowfall records, look, we were mentioning those because some of those snowfall records were over 100 years old and were being shattered and not broken. So anyway, and then of course, New Caledonia has been very, very active. Another 6.4 earthquake hit in the Loyalty Islands. Now, I've been monitoring this for the past week. I know Christian over at Ice Age Farmer, he has been also on top of this, and he's reported several times. One of his tweets, I think, read, "New Caledonia, take a rest," because it's constantly rattling off earthquakes. And this morning, it actually came off as a 6.8, and they've downgraded it. But before this earthquake, there were several 4.3, 5.4s, another 6.3, several moderate earthquakes that struck in this area, and it's been happening now for over a week. Again, this is out near was there tsunami? Yeah, there was tsunami warnings possible. I never seen if there was or not. It says here there is no tsunami threat from this earthquake, so that's good news to hear. You don't want the double whammy. Just like last week when you had the earthquake in Iran, it killed over 500 people, and then on top of add injury to insult, these folks were sleeping with no homes outside in the cold. It's cold over there right now, so. Bad time for stuff like that to happen, especially in countries like Iran and Iraq. As we all know, the structures over there are not quite as secure as they are here in other areas of the world. And then we have this. I got 2 more things I wanted to cover off of this website for weather. The rare Mediterranean tropical-like cyclone forms heading towards Greece. Now, I don't know about you guys, but there is a website on Facebook, and it's called Severe Weather Worldwide or something like that. But they show, it seems like every day there's a new flood video from Greece. So I find this startling to see a storm of this caliber coming in after all the heavy rains they are having still. And it says here, heavy rain is still affecting the country, causing serious flooding. This is just one of the video clips here that they show. The only thing I can think of is that he's sweeping away mud that's, washed up onto his porch. I don't know what the broom could be possibly for right now at this point. But this was actually from earlier this week. So now they're dealing with another storm that's coming into the area, a tropical-like cyclone. So Europe has seen its share of its increasing of the rains, the flooding, earthquakes. The floods seem to be a nonstop thing, and I've also seen a lot of storms in Russia, snowstorms, Italy, lots of snow in Turkey, hailstorms. So this is a very active region of the world right now, and not saying that the United States isn't. And then over here in Vietnam, we have Tropical Storm Kurogi about to slam into the southern Vietnam. And it says here, Tropical Storm Kurogi formed November 17th in the South China Sea after exiting the Philippines as Tropical Depression. Kurogi is the 25th named storm of 2017's Pacific typhoon season. Landfall over southern Vietnam is expected sometime after midnight on Sunday, November 19th. So the weather is starting to go downhill and continue at this point right now, as you see the time track here of where this storm is going to hit. Kurogi is expected to continue to tracking west-northwest along the southern boundary of the current steering ridge until landfall. And here it is from the satellite view. Look at all the cloud coverage here. Very impressive storm. Wow. Massive cloud coverage. Again, here's another track showing where the storm is going to end up. So at this part of the year, the Pacific typhoon season is still kicking, as we had a late spawn of a storm. I think it was earlier in the week. They thought they were going to have a little tropical storm, and it ended up turning into nothing. But we're still dealing with some strange weather in the tropics. Like right when you think everything's calming down, another one of these freak storms pop up. And over here at the Weather Channel, I found this to be a little interesting. They were talking more about some of the heaviest snowfalls on record have been generated by freshwater lakes, the Great Lakes, talking about the lake effect snow. And it does mention here about Buffalo in 2014. It talks about this epic snowstorm. And
we call that in Buffalo, we call that Snowvember.
Now, you are one that's probably best to talk about this. You were in this storm. I'm going to see what kind of...
I love it. Like, I'm one of those weirdos that actually loves...
this week's massive lake effect snowstorm brought with it...
Sorry.
So this one, I've been in several huge snowstorms here in Buffalo. I've lived half my life here. So the last one, I believe, was this one in 2014, where we did receive over 7 feet of snow. It was very interesting. Being in Buffalo and me living in the city, I'm fortunate enough to live off a snow evacuation route. So as soon as this happened, the National Guard was here bailing us out, but there were people boxed in the snow for weeks. Roofs collapsed, people trapped on the thruway. There was a lot of things. Since then, we've had a lot of developments when it comes to preventing people from getting stuck on the highways and dealing with safety issues. I think the worst thing was the people stuck on the highways, stranded. You know, you'd have just hundreds of cars stranded. It's happened a couple times before, but they've put barriers on all the ramps so when they close it, no one can get on. But they had an issue where to put the snow. They were loading the snow up in dump trucks and driving it away and piling it just in random parking lots and parks. And there's actually a Kmart parking lot that they piled the snow. I don't think that one that's showing is Kmart, but they had a parking lot. I think the snow, I was telling Jake just the other day, they piled the snow probably about 40 feet high. They had bulldozers and dump trucks, like just piling the snow up and up and up, and it took, till the end of the summer for it to melt.
Well, and that's creepy because right now with all the rain that we've had in the last several weeks, we've had enough rain that we're seeing our creeks and rivers run high. So if we got a snowstorm even half this size with the creeks and rivers already running high, that's a good question. Where are we going to put all this snow?
That is my concern this year. Buffalo has experienced several floods. We've had several incidents of flash flooding. Our basement's flooded several times within the past few months. Our creeks are still very high. I did put video footage of a few of the creeks in the area. The last flood that we had, we drove by was it 2 days ago? We drove by, checked the creeks out, and they were lower. But then just
right
yesterday, we had another storm come through, and it was like whitewater, river again. So, yeah, I'm very concerned about the snow melt coming in the spring. I feel like we're going to have a pretty active winter when it comes to snow, and it's just, where is that snow melt going to go with our everything, so high right now?
Well,
so it's going to be interesting to just sort of watch and assess.
And I'm glad you mentioned that too about the weather and where temps are going to be at. And I'm interested to know where this trend ends up. Look, again, here's Thanksgiving. And then the day after Thanksgiving is where they think this system right here will set up over the lakes, creating lake effect. Now, it's going to be in the mid-40s all week next week, the high 30s. So at night, we're going to be below freezing. The ground's going to be cold enough, so if we do get a system, it could support accumulations. But right now, they're not really talking much. In fact, they've dropped all conversation, I think, about the possible lake effect event.
Yeah, they scaled it back.
They have, big time. But I'm still interested in watching what happens here, especially at the end of November on the 29th, where we get coldest air in the middle of the region, which all that means is that as warm as it's been out there, anything is good right now as far as cooling effect. But I'm curious to see if this high pressure ridge here in the middle of the country, or I'm sorry, the low pressure, has anything to do with the warmth and the continuance. And just the way this jet stream have been going up and down, it's like a roller coaster, yin and yang. More and more, every time we look at it, we really start to see it unfold right before our eyes. One more thing I wanted to touch base, and then we'll probably wrap it up. But I wanted to show real quick, even the Weather Channel's watching this late week front that's setting up right here. So it is something that they are keeping an eye on, which is not saying that it's not going to have any possible chances of accumulating snows. But let's also remember that we are seeing some of the warmest temperatures right now that Southern Cal still. I mean, we were talking around the World Series time, they were in 95 degrees was the first pitch. You lived in California.
Yeah, I did.
This is not 90, 92
That's
degrees.
Very high for this time of year. Usually this time of year, that number is a lot lower. You're usually looking at, when I lived in California, it was about 75, maybe. It wasn't 90s. That was more August weather, but August be 90s to 100s. From what I recall, I lived in Los Angeles, so that, from my experience, I remember winters in California were sort of, you'd have like a 70 degree day, and then at night it'd go down into the 50s. You get into the rain season, where it'd be sort of wet and rainy occasionally, not to the point, I mean, I lived in drought season. Now, I don't know, I haven't checked what their drought things are now. I am concerned with California with the fires that they've had going into this season, their rainy season, with the all the burn up trees and stuff. It causes mudslides. Even if you don't have weird weather going on, just a regular rainfall, with these fires cause crazy mudslides. So I'm just worried, if they do get a lot of precipitation in California, how the fire affected areas are going to handle it.
Well, they're already talking about it. It's the number 2 headline for the week to watch. Here's a strong cold front is expected to push into the Pacific Northwest on Sunday, bringing another round of rain and wind to the region. Rain will be moderate to heavy at times, with the heaviest rain likely in the Olympics and the far western Washington, where the flooding may be a concern. Snow is also likely in the Cascades. Wet weather from the first system is expected to reach into northern California and western Montana by Monday morning. Snow may impact pass levels in the northern Rockies. So keep it in. You talking about the rains are starting to hit with the fires. That's a good point to bring up. We got to watch landslides, or we have to watch the mudslides, the flash flooding. We still, with these temperatures in California, you know, with the record snows that we had in the Sierra, which is not as hot now, of course, but still, this area, in my opinion, with all the wildfires and flooding with the rain and the snow melt, and the more snows that we get in the Sierras as the season moves in, each year I grow more and more concerned with this part of California from San Francisco all the way down to Los Angeles and further below south. So definitely, I hope that Mother Nature gives a little bit more relief to that part of the country, because they sure could use a little break when it comes to catastrophes here with fire. And now we're getting into the rainy season. Last year it kicked off with the Orville Dam story, so it's been kind of it's been a very wild year for California and the mountains over there. If you really take a look back, when we had the Orville Dam, we had the record snows, and then of course flooding from rain, and then fires, and now we're getting into the rainy season, and we're seeing a pattern develop in the Northwest. So a lot of stuff to catch up on for this week coming up. Next week we will have Christian on with Ice Age Farmer, hoping that our schedules will line up. We had a schedule issue today, but that's going to do it for us tonight, guys. Hope you have a great week. Stay tuned to the Grand Solar Minimum channel, where we will continue to cover the Grand Solar Minimum. Minimum. Jeez. All right, anyway, so hope everybody had a good night, and we'll see you guys real soon. Take care.
Bye.